Howdy, it's Mike again, and this is going to be a fun one. It's probably my favorite indicator. It's both simple and complex, depending on how you look at it. It is the 21-day exponential, and I did a poll on Twitter this week at M Webster 1971, asking which one folks wanted more, whether it was the follow through day, the 21-day or something non-stock related on fear, and it was really kind of a dead heat between the 21 day and the follow through day. So one of the next ones I'll do after this will be on the follow through day because I know it's a very important concept, and we might have to do a few videos on that. We might even have to do a few videos on the 21 day because I'll give you a little secret. I just recorded a 21 day video, and part of my sharing got messed up, and I was going to figure out how to edit it. I don't know how to edit. I'm just doing this on my own. So thanks for putting up with all the technical issues that I have. And, I'm sure the sound could be better in the video and all that. But, I'm just doing this on my weekend to help out everyone. And really my purpose for doing these videos, I've said it before, but, I was talking with someone earlier this week and just letting them know, that, I'm kind of doing this for two reasons. One, I didn't have any help starting out. I had no help. I had books, and I had a lot of friction or things that made it very difficult for me to learn. I had not a single soul helping me out in any way, shape, or form, and I had a ton of roadblocks, and it was very, very difficult. And so, when you get to the other side through the learning curve, um, you could either say, "Well, I never had any help, and so I'm not going to help anybody," or how I was raised is, you do the right thing, and so I didn't have any help, so I'm putting this out there to try to help folks out who are early on their life cycle. Also, Andrew Huberman Lab is my favorite podcast out there, and obviously this couldn't be any different than what he does. But I like his long format, and really, him trying to put out there some high end things that would normally cost a lot of money for free for people, because I know our firm has a lot of things that cost a lot that people just can't afford, and you should get those if you can afford them. And but if you can't, that's what this is for. And I wanted to have something out there for people, and really for selfish reasons. You never know how much time you have in life, and my twins are 23 now, and not really interested in the market, which is totally fine with me. My son's a little interested in the market, but I never encourage them to do anything. And hopefully they have kids at one point, and this would be something for them to show to their kids, to my grandkids, of what did your grandpa do? Maybe one of those will end up being into trading, because you just never know how much time you are blessed to have, or even mentally, if you're going to be together. So I just wanted to have something documented. I could have just recorded this on my own, and but I was concerned that I've got all these old computers around. It's like, who's ever going to even remember the password to get into the computers to those files? So figured if I put this out there, there's a bigger chance of YouTube, or I might, if I can figure out how to put this on Spotify or Apple or any of those, I'll do that. I don't know what I'm doing, frankly, when it comes to the whole podcast thing, but it's fun. I'm having a good time. You can probably tell. So, with that said, we're going to go over one of my favorite things. This is a 21 day exponential, how I use it, how you can use it, and how you can make it your own. But I want to start off with a backstory on this. So I'm going to tell you right now, if you don't want to hear the backstory on it, what I'm going to start doing is, when I'm done with the backstory, I'm going to go like this. So you can just fast forward until you see Webby do this, and then you can pause it, and then we'll get into the charts at that point. But I want to have this backstory out there. So this is going to go back to when I first started trading, and for Bill, or not for Bill, before I was trading for Bill, but I was at Bill's firm in '97, and then I've told him earlier ones of these. I read his book, in 95, just wanted to go work for him more than anything else, professionally speaking, and took a pay cut and was working in his research department trying to get noticed. Started in February 3rd of 97. And he gave me money to run as one of his PMs at the end of 99, which was short, but it felt like an eternity, man. It really felt like an eternity. Now I realize how short of a period of time that was, but didn't feel like it at the time because that was hell. And I'm not exaggerating. And if I told you what I went through during that time, you frankly wouldn't believe me. But it was every roadblock in every department in life was put in front of me. But it is what it is. So during that time, and that's why I'm doing these, or a large part of it, that my trading would do really well and then really poorly and really well and really poorly. I make a ton of money and I lose it all. And I make a ton of money. And that's because I didn't understand the market part. And I read Bill's book. It kind of just skimmed over, not skimmed, I read it, the M chapter, but it didn't make sense to me. It was gobbledygook. It was someone just contradicting themselves. It made no sense because I didn't have a foundation. Now I read it as gold, but at the time I just didn't get it. So I was just focused on individual stocks and I didn't realize how important the general market was. And general market is everything, 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 everything. So, it's like, think about it. The general market is like the weather. Like you can go outside in a rainstorm and maybe not get too wet, if you have an umbrella or something, but probably still going to get wet. And that's kind of like that was a terrible analogy, but, it is like the weather, it is, if it's sunny out, you're probably going to do well. You're going to get a suntan. Your stocks are going to do well. If the sky is crying out there, you're probably going to be dealing with a little bit of a flood on your hands. So, but I didn't know that at the time. And so I was looking at my account going, why do I keep doing this? And then I thought, let me look at the general market. And then I knew that there was this thing called distribution days and follow through days, but I didn't understand them. So I started looking at it going, well, I see I'm making money when we're trending up and I'm losing money when we're trending down and I'm getting chopped up when we're going sideways. So, well, let's use a moving average for this to smooth things out. And Bill was very hardcore with things. He had a 50-day and a 200-day moving average on his daily charts, which equated to a 10-week and a 40-week. And that was it. It was his way or the highway. You use those moving averages, nothing else. And that's, sorry for my cough. And that's just the way it was. Now, he did allow for a 10-day simple moving average because I think some people wanted that on some things. And so he was okay with it, but he would never have it on his stuff. It was just the 50-day or the 200-day. So then I knew that, okay, I was going to use a 10-day because that was somewhat approved, or a 50-day because 200-day it's very odd for the market to actually come down and undercut the 200-day. So that was too late of a signal. And so I knew that the answer for a moving average was somewhere between the 10 and the 50-day. And I wasn't sure where, but I knew at least that was something. So I'm going to walk you through this process, my thought process when I'm building things, just so you can, when you're building something, start thinking of that same process. So I knew my starting and my ending point. I knew it was about 10 days to 50 days. Somewhere in between there was what I needed to measure a trend in the market, which I thought like, okay, when we're above the 10-day, I'm going to gun it. And when we're out below the 10-day, I'm going to be in cash. That was my thought process at the time. Now it's changed since from there, but I was looking for the right moving average. So I started looking at everything during the time frame. And I'm going to share with you something that I built in TradeStation, because at the time, okay. So Here are a bunch of moving averages, and we'll get into what they are in a little bit. But from very short-term moving averages to longer-term moving averages, and if you haven't guessed it, in thick blue, that's your 21-day exponential. So I was thinking, like, okay, which one is the right one to use? Not knowing that the answer was the 21-day exponential. So somewhere around a 10-day over to a 50-day, and the 50-day was too long, 10-day too short. So I started doing this back test in TradeStation. So I got TradeStation, and at the time, it was. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. I just gotta remember to share again. That at the time it was very expensive. I think it was like, with all the exchange fees and stuff I had to pay. I think it was like a car payment, and I didn't have much money. And at the time, I was in the research department, not making much money. In fact, I was giving Bill more in commission through my own trading than I was getting in salary most of the time, because he forced us to trade through him, through his stock mart discount brokerage, which was $28 a ticket plus a nickel a share. Meaning, if you want to buy something, you want to buy one share of something, it's $28 plus a nickel a share. So the more shares, the more additional fee. So you do that a lot on a little account, and that adds up quickly, especially in the late 90s. So I would pay him more on a typical day, sometimes a lot more in commission than I was getting in salary, but a good deal if you can get it. That was Bill. Anyways, that was what it was. People don't realize how easy they have it now that commissions are free, and it was terrible execution. It was, and it really was. But anyways, that's topic for, well, yeah, I'll keep that one to myself. So, anyways, I was trying to figure out, how which moving average to use, and they have this thing called TradeStation. And so I was paying, all this money, let's call it $250 or $270 a month or something like that, for this. And so I really wanted to harness it, and it had this backtesting capability in there. And so I tested out every moving average from 10 days to 50 days in increments of 1 day. So you could put it in there and say, okay, well, if you buy if the close is above the 10-day and sell if the close is below it, and you do this over this instrument. In my case, it was the Nasdaq Composite. And if you do it over this time frame, what is your best return? What's your best drawdown? Do it for 10 days, do it for 11 days, all the way out to 50 days. And I believe from memory that the right one was either 33 days or 34 days in the way that I did my back test. And so then when I plotted that out on the chart, let me see. Let me share that. Okay. Got to get in a habit of confirming this. So this is probably the 34. Let's see. Yeah, that's the 34. So this one here is your 34 day. Let me just make that really thick for you guys to be able to see. Okay, that really thick kind of tan type of color there. That's a 34. And there's 34 exponential to be exact. It just seemed a little bit too slow for how I was trading in the market. So I knew that now I had more information. Okay, 10-day was too short, 34 days was too long, even though that's what would have worked for a back test. So then it was like, okay, where do I go from there? So then instead of doing the back testing and data fitting it, from that way, I just looked at the chart, and I just, was looking at all these different ones, and I kind of honed in on like about a month worth of time, because 10 days is obviously, 2 weeks, and 50 days is 10 weeks. What makes sense is really like 13 weeks, because that's a quarter, but that's too long as well. And so I was just thinking, okay, where is it? And I'm like, okay, a month makes sense. And so most months, are somewhere between 18 to 22, 23 trading days, or 22 trading days. So I knew it was in that ballpark, and I was looking at some books, and remember, like from my last one, the one on Google, I think it was the one on Google, I was talking about how Bill was not a fan of, you know, all this work out there, like the Edward and McGee book. So I dug this out today to see, um, what moving averages they had, because I'm like, oh, was someone else using the 21 day? Because I don't remember anyone using the 21 day. So they have in here the 3 day, the 5 day, the 9 day, the 10 day, the 18 day, which was very popular, a 20 day, a 30 day. So a 20 and a 30, but not a 21, and then a 50, 100, and a 200 in this one. So I'm not saying that other people weren't using the 21 day, but I didn't know of anyone, or I don't remember anyone using it, at least now at my advanced age. So I tested each one, an 18, a 19, a 20, a 21, 22, and was just plotted them on there and was trying to figure out the best one. And they were all about the same. And I was using the simple moving average at the time. And one thing led to another, and just kind of trying to be fast with this. And after a long, long process, I found that the 21 made the most sense. But at the same time, I was leaning towards a 21 over a 20 or a 22, or even an 18, because I was getting into the whole Fibonacci thing. And not the Fibonacci the way most people use it, but just Fibonacci numbers. And let me share this. If you're not familiar with the Fibonacci sequence, Google it, and it's fascinating. But all it is something very simple that can help you with complex issues. And it's just you take the last two numbers, starting off with 0 and 1, and you add them, and then you keep adding the last two numbers. So 0 plus 1 equals 1, 1 plus 1 equals 2, 2 plus 1 equals 3, and so on. 21 plus 13 equals 34, and so on and so forth. And in nature, it's crazy, but in nature, you will. I just dug around online to find some different pictures and stuff, and you'll see this happen. And this is what I found fascinating in nature. All these times where these Fibonacci numbers repeat, and I think Mother Nature is a pretty smart chick, and so if she's doing that with things, you kind of want to pay attention to it. So I use those as my starting point. The fibs are I don't do the fib retracements if someone's going to ask. I do a 50% retracement at 25 or 66 retracement. That's my own thing, or 33, but not the fibs. But maybe I'll do something on retracements at another time. But I would use these different numbers. Let's go back to them again, just so if you're not familiar with them, again, a 1, a 2, a 3, a 5, an 8, a 13, a 21, a 34, a 55, an 89, a 144, 233. Further than 233 doesn't really work because it's out so far, at least with stocks. So these are the ones whenever I'm building any indicators for myself, I start with these. It doesn't mean that I won't move away from them, but they've become a starting point. If I know that an indicator I'm building needs something very short term, I'm going to start with a 3, a 5, and an 8 day. If I know that it needs something, kind of longer term, I'll go with a 55 or an 89 or a 144. And some things I've got some indicators where I have all of those things working behind the scenes, rather than an arbitrary thing that someone's using a 200 day because so and so used a 200 day and somebody else used a 200 day. It's like it's just a round number, man. Like it's a round number. It's silly. So, anyways, I lean heavily on these, and so I was, I was like, okay, I kept going back to the 21 for that reason. Once I honed in on an area, then a buddy of mine was using an exponential. I think he was using an 18 exponential, but I could be wrong. maybe he was using a 21. I just don't remember. But he was using an exponential, and I'd file that away. I'm like, okay, I've got to figure out this whole exponential thing. And so let me share Market Surge with you, and we will go over that for a second. Excuse me, still fighting this cold. So we are going to put on moving averages. Right now we have a 21-day exponential. You can see that check mark is there. We're going to put a 21-day simple on. And so I'm not going to click on exponential. I'm going to apply changes. And looking at the NASDAQ here, you can see that in green is the 21-day exponential. And in this looks like pinkish color, I guess it's pink, that's your 21-day simple. And you can see when they're trending, once they start moving together, they're about the same. But it's around the turns where you're going to see a lag. And the 21, because 21 exponential, because it puts more weight on the most recent action, is going to be tighter. And whenever you can, use an exponential instead of a simple, with one caveat, and I'll get into that in a second. But use the 21-day because it's tighter to your data set, to what's more important to you, because today's action is more important than 21 days ago. And 18 days ago is more important than 19 days ago, and so on. And that's how the exponential works. Whereas the simple treats them all the same, where all days are not equal. They aren't. Today's action is more important than yesterday. And you can see where be some lags in here. And at the turns, you're going to get in faster and get out faster using the exponential in most cases. So I would just get rid of that, the simple. Now, the time to use the simple is when you're using something that's a self-fulfilling. So a 50-day or a 200-day, or even a 10-day, I would use simple, because those are ones where everyone else uses it, because your thought process with those isn't using them as a good moving average, is knowing that everyone else uses those as what they consider a good moving average. So they should get support, like a stock should get support around its 10-week simple, which equates to a 50-day simple. And if it doesn't, then you've got to wonder, like, why aren't the institutions supporting it when they should? Or the same thing with a 200-day simple. So even though I would say a 55-day exponential would work better than a 50-day simple, or a 233 fib number, 233 exponential would work better than a 200-day simple. You're not using it for that purpose. You want to know, how does the stock or index act around what everyone else is looking at. So it's self-fulfilling. You use whatever everyone else is using. If everyone switches to a 10-day exponential, use a 10-day exponential when you're studying that, because you want to know how the stock is handling itself the way other people think. But if you're using your own thing, I would lean towards exponential. I feel strongly about that. But I have some friends who I highly respect who are into the simple thing. And dude, I'm a simple man. Leonard Skinner said it best. Nothing wrong with keeping it simple if that's what you want to do. But when it comes to moving averages, exponential is the way I like to roll. So with that, so now we know that we've honed in. Kind of recap. We did the back test. We knew that between 10 and 50 was kind of our sweet spot. We weren't sure where. We did a back test in TradeStation, found out it was either 33 or 34. 34 was the fib number, so it was probably that. But knowing that was too slow, then we honed into around a month long, looked at the 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and settled on the 21, and then we went with the exponential. So that's what I came up with in, let's say, 98. And I wasn't working with Bill at that point. It wasn't until the end of 99 when he gave me money to run. I was in his research department, but I was like, I only saw him a few times during that whole time. And we'll do a podcast on those, because those are some good stories. But and anyways, so I had this, but I also knew that Bill was, um, I'd heard enough through the grapevine is don't mess with Bill's system. He hates when people mess with the system. Um, so I kept this 21 day as secret and just something I kept to myself. Now, fast forward, now it's, uh, started running money for him. First trade was January 13th of 2000. Several months later, or a few months later, actually, he he was switching offices from upstairs to downstairs. So Juan was upstairs and William O'Neill and Company, where I worked, and downstairs was IBD, where I work right now, but different building, obviously. I work out of my house. But he would always switch his desk to whichever company was he wanted to focus on for that time frame. And he had several other companies too, which we won't get into. But between those two companies at this point, so he goes down to IBD, and that office is smaller than his one office, and so they have all these boxes and stuff up there, and they were going to just put them out in these containers. And I said, oh please, can I look through them? I'm like, this is gold. And people are like, why do you want to go through them? And I'm like, and Bill's like, why do you want to go through all that old stuff? And I went through every page of every box, and it took me a long time. And I still have a lot of that stuff here that he let me have, and a couple briefcases he gave me, and I lost the wallet that he gave me, his wallet and briefcase during the that came out of those boxes. But anyways, the most important thing that came out of that was, mind you, I was working in his office, sharing an office with him. At this point, it was just the two of us. Later, Wendy, a PM, came and shared an office with us. Really nice lady, good friend. And then, of course, Charles Harris and I shared an office with Bill for a long time. And, that was a lot of fun as well. We had a really good time. But let me share with you this thing that I found. This was this checklist that didn't have a date on it, and I haven't been able to figure it out exactly, but I would say it was sometime between 1968 to 1971-ish or so. When he had this, and this was, he always had a group of PMs, tend to like around 10 PMs at a time, and he would have them all fill out this form this checklist before they buy a stock. And can you kind of see the thing that jumped out at me? Let me see if I can zoom in on here so you can see this a little better. Right there under A, I'll let you read it while I cough. Exactly. 21 day moving average is the Dow Jones. That's what he used back then. In a short term positive or negative, above or below the 21 day moving average. Oh my God, this was huge. Like, I cannot tell you. I was like literally inside. I might have even jumped up and down in the room. I don't even know, because I've been keeping the secret, and I don't do a good job keeping secrets. Wouldn't have worked well with Steve Jobs. Let me blow this out so you can see the rest of it. And I'll share this on Twitter. Well, I already did. M. Webster 1971. I posted it this morning. So here are some of the other things in that checklist. But the most important thing was that. So now this thing that I'd been keeping as a secret, I could share with him. I was like, Bill, you used to have this 21 day in as one of the things you had the PMs look at. And he didn't remember it at all, and he's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, I've been studying this. I didn't get into the whole story. I'm like, I've been studying this and it seems to really work. And he's like, oh, we'll put it on my machine. So I put it on his Wanda machine, which is like Market Surge, but the institutional version. He used it for a while, and then he didn't need it, frankly, and he asked me to remove it, but he was fine with it. So then that was like, I was blessed, because you don't understand how hardcore it was. Like, it was Bill's way or the highway. You could not deviate from the system. It was a big deal. Like a big deal. Like, people would kind of refer to it as like a cult. There were things about it that were kind of like that, that were like, it was very rigid, very orthodox. And I was very orthodox at that time. I was very rigid, and it was like this way. And so then I was blessed to be able to use the 21 day, and I've been using it openly ever since. And now I find it kind of funny because, you go back to the old books, like the Edwards and McGee book, and no one mentioned the 21 day. I'm sure that there were some people out there using the 21 day. Um, I didn't know any, and I just stumbled on it, and it's worked for me ever since. Now I see people, post, oh, it's above the 21 day or below the 21 day, and they probably have no idea where that really came from. Because I would talk about it at seminars. I taught seminars with Bill uh, for a while, and then Chuck and I would do the chart school together. And then eventually we did market school, IBD's market school, where Chuck, Justin, and I build all those rules, which you guys should really look into. And they were buy and sell rules. And each one of us brought our own perspective to the project. And one of my key things that I brought to it was the 21 day and how I wanted it to be very heavily based on the 21 day, which it is. And so it's like if it's above it, the 21 day, we do this one thing, below it in a certain way, it does another thing, above it for a certain number of days, low above it for a certain number of days, another thing happens, high below the 21 day, other things happen. Like all these rules around the 21 day, we also had, several other buy and sell rules, follow throughs, distribution, and 50 day and things like that. Power trend is heavily based on the something we came up with. I'll do a podcast on that as well that three of us came up with, and heavily based on the 21 day. So that's where this whole 21 thing came from. So I was talking about it so much now, it just becomes this norm that everyone's using, and it just puts a smile on my face. So as I was saying before, a lot of these, reason why I'm doing this is because, if people, 10, 15, 20 years from now are still using the 21 day and I'm not around, at least my grandkids could be like, oh, hey, my granddad, I don't know why my kids would sound like that, but my granddad came up with this and that and the other thing, and maybe put a smile on their face. We'll see. But anyways, so that's kind of the origin of the origin story, or the behind the scenes, behind the music, so to speak, behind the 21 day and how that whole thing came about. So then another thing on this checklist, which is kind of a funny story, is so we did that checklist. Again, I'll share it one more time just to refresh your memory. So this olden checklist, and it was kind of forgotten about for a little bit. And then we were having a tough time in the market. It would happen all the time. We'd do really well as a group, and then we'd do really poorly as a group and everything. And you'd always have, outliers, some people doing really well when other people are doing poorly, and poorly when people are doing well. I mean, when you get 10 people, you're going to get a normal distribution like that. But when all of us were doing poorly, Bill would have PM meetings and talk to us about it. And one of the times was, he's like, hey, that checklist that you had, that you'd found, let's dig that out and go over. And so we went over it together, and he's like, well, this really needs to be updated. So the two of us spent, I don't know how long, it was a long time, wasn't weeks, it was months, working on this other checklist that I used to bring to the level 4 workshops that we would teach in Santa Monica. This one, that one morphed into this, and Bill and I, just the two of us, worked on this and it built this one. And how not to make friends and influence people is being involved with Bill on this, and then having to tell the PM staff with him that like we're all going to have to fill out one of these every time we trade. I didn't go over too well. I'm not sure if anyone actually did it for long, but I did do it for a while, but it was, man, did it slow my trading down. So here was the checklist. Let me just blow this up a little bit. So you'd start off by just saying, what type of base are you, and I'll do a whole one just on this, so we won't get bogged down in it. And then specifics about the base, all this cool stuff in there. Then this is the part that everyone hated, myself included, because once you had to do this, it was really time consuming. I mean, some of this stuff, pattern rec, I built it in such a way to be able to count it for you, like how much, what stage base is it? Well, that was easy. You just, you know, look at pattern rec, but some of the other stuff was a little bit trickier. But take a look at all of these until we get around to going over them together, and all important stuff. And I would say the most important thing, and this was something I wanted, it was a big deal for me to have in here and have it in this way, because I was a big fan of Peter Lynch and Warren Buffett, still am, that their concept of keeping things simple really always resonated with me, and they were both kind of the same mindset of it. Like, if you don't understand something well enough to explain it to a little kid, you probably don't understand it as well as you should. So the concept of the company it wasn't by accident. There was only two lines there, and we had toyed around about only having one line, but we wanted to have two lines, and so that's all you really need to know about it. If you can write two lines about a company, that's you're kind of good to go. Let me. Why is this giving me trouble? Stop sharing. So that was the checklist. Again, I'll do a whole separate one on that, but this became that morphed into that. That's kind of how things would work with us. Is we'd work on something together, and then we would share it either with the team or everyone outside the building, and that's how Bill was. And a lot of the reason why I am the way I am is we would stumble on something, discover something that we would put a ton of time and his money into, because he's funding it if we needed temps or programmers or what have you, doing some of the heavy lifting. If I was maxed out, that as soon as we came up with something, he would wanted to share it with people, and not necessarily the Juan side. He was more concerned with sharing it with the IBD side of things. People who were paying him $1 uh, for a paper versus people who were paying him hundreds of thousands of dollars for his research and our NESME list and Wanda and stuff. And so I love that. I absolutely love that about him, because he would care more about the average person. I mean, when we were like travel together, and like if we were in an airport or something, you would see him anytime. He'd always have his newspaper with him. If anyone showed even remote interest in the newspaper, he would talk their ear off. And it didn't matter where they were in life. Whether a doctor or lawyer or on the opposite side of the spectrum or anything in between or above. Didn't matter. Like and I love that he just wanted to help people, and that's what I want to do. So with that said, let's get into this. Let's oh, I have to do this. We're going to start getting into this, so you can stop fast forwarding and all that good stuff. So let's make sure I share the right screen. And this is my second time recording, so hopefully I'm not repetitive, because I don't remember. I was recording this earlier, and I got to the end, and I'm like, oh shoot, I wasn't sharing a screen the whole time. So now I'm going to look over here to make sure that it's being shared. So here are all the different moving averages, but we're going to focus in on the 21 day. So that's just this blue line. So let's go over some of the basics of it. There's above the line, and then there's trending above the line, and there's living above the line, and trending below, and living below, and all sorts of variations in what's important. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to capture this time here where it's really living, above the its moving average for a long period of time. So here on 5-3, we get our close above it and our low above it. And so I really like looking at it both ways. Your close, first you get a close above it, and then you get a low above it, then you get your low above it for multiple days, and each one means something. Every once in a while you get a gap up where you get your low above it and your close above it, but it's more the exception than the norm. But when that happens, you really want to pay attention to it. So on 5/3/24, you get this gap up above it. Let me just blow this up a little bit and go over here. Make this a little bit easier for you guys to see. Oh, you know what? We'll start now. We'll go back to that later. Okay. So here on 5/3/24, right here, low is above it and your close is above it. And you're up on the day. So that's a buy. That's how I would look as a buy signal. Now, the next thing is you want to stay above it and keep that low above it. And typically for at least 3 days and close up on that day. So here you're 3 days up, but it looks like you close down slightly. So on this day, on 5/8, third day up where your low has been above it. So that's really telling you that, the trend is probably changed, really start getting on this train. And the more days you have above it, the better. There's nothing magical about 3 days. For market school, we used 5 days, but I lean towards 3 days. And then once you penetrate through it, it's a warning sign. It's like a shot across the bow, as you did on this day on 5/30 or 5/31. Sometimes it's just a shakeout, but you don't know that at the time. So you do have to take action when you're underneath that 21 day. But if you recover through it, then it's kind of resetting itself. You're waiting for your low to get back above it and your close to get back above it, or your close to get back above it and your low to get above it and low to get above it for 3 days in a row. So here, looks like your low is above it on this day, and then you get 3 days in a row, somewhere over here. It's always kind of hard to tell with the candle if it was an up or not. But anyways, so on this shakeout, it's kind of like, okay, temper your enthusiasm until you start living back above it again, as you do here. You're moving it back above it. Then you get a close below it. So this is more meaningful than over here, because here was a shakeout below it, close back above it intraday. Now, especially the longer you've been above the moving average and you cross below it, the more meaningful that is. So you want to kind of count the number of days that you're above it. So here you need to back away kind of in a big way. And look, that's what ends up happening. Let's move forward. So here on this day, you get a close above it, but it's not as meaningful because you're just barely above it. Only part of your bar is in there, but still it's above it. Then you get another day above it, and that's a little bit more meaningful. But here's your real important day. Your low is above it and your close is above it, and you're up on the day. So on 8/15, that's really kind of your sign with the 21 day. Now, right away, you can see the weakness of the 21 day is you can't use it off the bottom. Like down here, from here on up here, you're in no man's land with the 21 day, which is a balance. There's nothing perfect. It's, you give up a lot of that ground. Now you can get it there's some other things that we'll talk about in future podcasts, but for now, just focus on the 21 day. Let's say you're just light in the market until back above here. And then until on this day, now your low is back below it, even though you don't close below it. That's your warning sign. Your next day, you kind of close at it, and then by this time, warning sign again, and then it starts all over again over here. First close above it. Your low's been above it over here for a number of days. You trade underneath it for a little bit, so it's a little bit of a warning sign until over here start gunning again. And when you're doing this, you really want to think in terms of like a gas pedal. And I like to think of things in terms of gas pedal and a brake, just like you're driving. And so there's a time where you just ease off the gas, and that's when your low goes underneath your 21 day, but you don't close below it. If you close below it, then you're easing off your gas and you're tapping on the brakes. A major close below it after being above it for a long period of time, and you're like slamming on the brakes. There's different variations, and as you go through this, just think of it in terms of your driving. We'll leave the clutch out of it because I know most people don't know how to drive with a clutch, and that's a whole different thing. So we'll just keep it simple with a gas pedal, accelerator, and a brake. And so when your low is above it, you're putting on the gas. When your low has been above it for a number of days, 3 or more, and you're closing up on the day, you're putting more and more gas down. Again, it comes back and touches that 21 day. You're easing off that gas, and if you close below, you're putting on the brakes, and then you're looking at the time element too. Something we learned from Jesse Livermore. The time element is very important, and so we we've got that going for us as well. So let's go back over to TradeStation. We're going to make sure that we're sharing. Okay, good. Sharing this time. Let's go back in time on the NASDAQ. And okay, here was a good example. So this is right over here. This is March of 23. You're above it for a while, but let's really get into it over here. By May 10th of 23, you're starting to live above your 21 day. So you're gunning it, you're gassing it and gassing it a little bit more each time. This whole time, it doesn't even penetrate the 21 day on this day, on June 26th. So you're fine there. Now you're going forward. And then finally, on August 2nd of 23, you not only penetrate it, but you close below it. And so that's your warning sign that you've been above it for this long period of time. You close below it. You need to back away, and you need to back away kind of quickly because of the amount of time. If you'd only been above there for a few weeks, you wouldn't have gotten that heavy. But all that time with your gas pedal down, you need to be putting on those brakes, and you can see that paid off during this time where you're underneath it. And the more time your high is underneath your 21 day, the more conservative you would get. And then over here, looks like it's starting to go, and then it fails. But nothing is perfect. I mean, I remember just the other day I put something out there about the 21 day, and someone, I think it was on Twitter, was like, "Oh well, yeah, but you get chopped up." Well, use something that doesn't get you chopped up. If you have something that doesn't get you chopped up in the market, well, it's probably either total data fitting or doesn't work, or a combination of the two, or it's so slow. Like, you pick a time frame where there's lots of wiggles and wobbles in the market, and you go, okay, well, what moving average did it not penetrate? It didn't penetrate the 450-day moving average the whole time. Are you going to use the 450 day? No, that's data fitting, So you got to find something, and nothing is perfect, and that's why you use a combination of things. But I lean so heavily on the 21 day because, frankly, besides the RS line and the RS line moving averages that we've talked about with Quicksand, Grateful Dead during the other podcast, this is the best thing that I've been able to come up with. So you get chopped around a little bit, but again, if it's an accelerator and you're gradually getting on, like here on October 6th, gas pedals down because your close is back above it. You got another close above it, a little bit more gas pedal. Now your low's above it, a little bit more gas pedal, low's above it again. On here, your low's above it, but you're only been above it for 3 days, but you close down on the day, so you're not really gas hitting it. But then on this day, when you were looking for your third day, it comes back through it. So you're really not hurt that much. You're just gradually getting in, and then you're back out of it. And then here on November 2nd, you close back above it. Your low is above it. And by November 6th, 3 consecutive days, closing up on the day, low has been above it. So your gas pedal is on hard. Here's an example where it didn't quite, wasn't that bad. On January 2nd, you penetrate through your 21 days. So you're starting to take your foot off the gas, even maybe tapping your brakes a little bit, certainly putting on your brakes hard on January 3rd. And even more so the next day, because now your high is underneath your 21 day for a couple days. But then right away on the 8th, you're back above it. And so you're starting, you got your foot back off the brake, starting to put your gas back on, and you go through this whole thing. You can see where once it really starts trending, it can trend nicely. And then there are times where that's tough when it keeps on testing it. And like it did it over here and over here. So that makes it a bit harder. But you're living for the times like this, May 3rd of 24, you're above it for a long time and so on. So that is it on that. Let's go over to market surge and look at some individual stocks. You know what? Before we do that, let's go over to the Webby RSI. I just want to share this with you for a second. So this is something we'll talk about. We'll do probably a few episodes just on this. So this is one of my inventions, the Webby RSI. RSI does not stand for real. What's the normal RSI? Relative Strength Index, I guess. This is my play on words is Webby's really simple indicator because it is a low versus a 21-day expressed as a histogram down at the bottom. Now this is I created that a while back and I keep building on it. And now this is in terms of percent, it's in terms of ATR. Plus we have a bunch of other things going on with your high underneath it is the one in burnt orange, and there's some other things, and we'll do a few on there because there's so much involved with this indicator. And I refer to this version as my Webby RSI version 5.150 because it's a more complicated version with the burnt orange stuff on there, the 10-day stuff, and some things that we'll get into, and especially it being in ATRs. My first version was quite a bit simpler than that. So that's something for another day, but it all comes out of the 21-day. So now let's share the same thing, but we're going to do this on market surge. We're going to get rid of that simple indicator or the simple moving average. And again, 21-day, click on that exponential, hit apply changes, and it's the green line. Red line is the 50-day, black line is the 200-day. Those are hard-coded in there right now. So again, here was your time that you really were trading above it. And let's go into how it saves you in market downtrends. Let's just look at a few downtrends. Let's go back in time. Wait, that was, what is this, 2010? Let's go back to 2000. Okay, so during this time in this is 99. Let's blow this up. Here's where it topped on March 10th of 2000. And that's terrible bear market. The worst thing since 1929. The only thing worse was 73, 74. We'll talk about that in a second probably. But here, you're underneath your 21-day, that whole time, with the exception of this one day where it pokes up. So it works just as well keeping you out. And look at this too. This whole time keeps you out. You're up there for a day or two. Your low doesn't even get above it, which is, during this time frame, if you're waiting for your low to get above it, doesn't even trigger that. It does trigger it for a little bit in here, and before anyone says anything about the market topped in 2000, we all got out in 2000, but we all were trading back and in this time frame. And I'll tell you, Bill was trading Corning, this one very heavily out of this base in here, and I'll do a whole episode on that because I learned so much. I was trading it too. Learned so much from how that transpired. But anyways, so we were still trading in here. And then during this time, let's go out to 01, about another year. You can see the bulk of this time, if you just abided by the 21-day and stayed out of it, I mean, that was a lot of damage. I think that's a bad trade. I don't think we've got some bad data in here. And during this time frame, you're underneath it. When you're finally hit bottom, that's where you're above it for the most part, not perfectly above it. And then, well, that wasn't the bottom because that's a year early. But during this time frame, this whole time it becomes a ceiling. It was a ceiling. It's either a ceiling or a floor. And if you use like a different moving average, a 50-day or a 10-day or 200-day, they just don't work as well. Just try them out. You'll see. Um, but during these times, I mean, that was, there was a lot of money to be made. We frankly didn't do that well during this balance. It was very, very difficult. And any one of these days were so volatile. Look, that day is up 5%. The next day is down 4%. I mean, that was very, very tricky. Let's look at some other time frames. What time frame do you want to look at? Oh, let's look at 1999, because that was the time, or actually 98. This was the time where came up with this, and you can see that here over here is 97. I do well in times like this when we're trending above it, and give it all back during this time, and give it back during this time, and then make it during this time. And that's how this was the time frame that I figured out the 21 day on. Now during this bear market, I know it doesn't look like much, but I think it was a 33% bear market from July of 98 to October of 98. And boy, that was wow, so much to learn from that time frame. I remember it like it was yesterday. I put my first individual short on during there and lost money. It was like, I think it was on this day or this day. And I lost money shorting because I didn't know what I was doing. Topic for another day. But look at from here to here. From here, you're above it. Then you're below it this whole time. You're basically living below it. You're above it for a couple days, and then you're back below it. So this entire bear market, if you just use that 21 day, and especially your low not being above your 21 day as your signal to be light in the market or out of the market or short the market, how much money it made you, or at least saved you. And then when it turned here, let's go here on October 15th, you get your close above it, your first signal to start buying. Or here, well, this one's a little different because your 50 days is in such a decline, but still, first signal there, another signal there. And you don't get maybe you got 3 consecutive days with your low above it on that day, but really not in spirit because it's not at new highs. But even so, let's just say you started putting on the gas more there, you're back out of it by here. So no harm, no foul. And one thing I learned from Chuck was when you've got a declining 50 day, like, so the 21 day was really my thing. And that's what I brought to the table with with market school. That was, we each kind of, all three of us brought our own unique things. And that was my big contribution there. And his big contribution was that when you're coming up to a 50 day, make sure that 50 day is flat or on an incline, not a decline. And I didn't trust him at first until I studied it, but I don't trust anything at first until I study it. And he was dead right. When there are exceptions, but when you come up to the declining 50 day, you need to be very cautious. And so that's kind of the poster child there. So here, first day back above it, taking some action. Another day, first day our low is above it, taking more action. Our low is above it, and for the second day, just making note of it. Downside reversal, but our low is above it, so kind of a mixed bag. And again, we're at that 50 day that Chuck warned us about. Then now this kind of changes it. So this is our third or more consecutive day that closes up with that our low is above your 21 day. So you're starting putting on the gas a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little more, and a little more, and a little more, and a little more, and so on. And this is a bad print. That didn't trade down there. We got to clean up some of this price data. And then let's see when it comes down, it almost touches it here, but not quite. Keeps going. Okay, so here it looks like it touches it if that's an accurate price. So it would slow you down a little bit, but you're gunning it from here to here. And during this time, Bill was loaded up in Schwab and AOL and just made a ton of money during that. But that'll be, we'll do that one another time. So many of these to do. I mean, I hope you guys want to watch. I mean, I don't know. But that's your first warning sign on February 5th of 98 that things have kind of changed, because we've been above it this whole time. Touched it here, might have touched it a little bit here, but this is your first real close below it. So you change and your foot is off that gas and you're starting to pump those brakes. And, let's go out a little bit. And you can see it's just chopping around. And this is why I like that low being above it, that just because your close is above it, you're not taking too much action, because right away, then you get a close back. So if you load it up because your close is above your 21 day, you're going to get better prices. Like, think about it. You're probably thinking to yourself, well, why didn't you just load up there? It's obvious. Well, it's obvious there because you see all of this. But at this point, I mean, didn't that look just like this day? Didn't it look like this day? Didn't it look like this day? And that didn't work. Didn't it look like this day? You always want to be intellectually honest with yourself. So this day looks really powerful. 211 looks really powerful. Like it's going to come back up, but then right away the next day is back below. So that's why we're waiting for that low to get above it. Now it's not foolproof, as we'll see here in a second, but it's better at tempering yourself. So here we get a close back above it, and our first time our low is above it for 3 or more consecutive days, and you close up, which is on this day. You get a few weeks or week and a half of some good trading, and then right back below it. So then you're backing off. So there's this choppiness that goes on. Let's go out a couple months. More choppiness. People think of 99 as being easy. The tail end was, but during it, this was a lot of chop. And so again, I was noticing that I was making most of my progress here and getting, chopped up the most here, and why this whole 21 day became a big deal for me. Now let's go out to October, where the things really start. So now our closes back above it, our lows above it there, lows above it here. Let's go out one more day. Our third day with our closes up just barely, and our low is above it. We're above this marked high here, so we're gunning it more. More. Mental note, is not fun being sick. Okay, we're going out, staying above it, staying alive. Okay, so here, the 5th is our first time that we're getting a little bit of our warning sign. This is our first breach of it, and look what's happening with some leaders. Here was Qualcomm during that time. Look at how much that's come off its peak. So it also coincides with things like that. But then we're back up. Let's go to the 13th, my first day of trading. Go out to the end of the month, and you can see now our low is back above it here, 3 days in a row there, and then that was hard. Let's go to the top. Here's our top in the market. And you can see, with the exception of this one day here, that you're pretty much above it. And, I can tell you, and I don't like talking about my returns or anything, because they're not always good. And, I get killed too. And I have great times and bad times and everything in between, just like everyone else. But just letting you know, like, what was possible during this time, even trading Orthodox, from this first day here to here in Bill's account, I was up over 100% during that time frame. Now, we were using margin and all, but I'll tell you, my first trade was, it's no longer in the database, that I bought on this day was I'll stop sharing for this one, because this is, got to think, here I'm for 3 years, I'm trying to become a PM for Bill, and I'm finally a PM for Bill, and I buy my first stock, and I bought two stocks that day, and one of them was Red Hat, RHAT, and I buy it, and the next day, it gaps down 10% on me on some random news, I think a downgrade or something. So here, I've worked so hard, and for a second, for a split second, like not even a whole second, for a split second, I'd been like a robot, like rigid with all my rules, trying to get noticed by him, then finally trading for him. And it took a few weeks for the accounts to get set up and everything. And so even though I was technically a PM at the end of 99, that was my first trade. And my first stock gaps down on me 10%. And I'm like, for a split second, rationalizing, like, maybe it'll come back. Maybe it'll come back. But I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, Mike? Sell it, like, what are you doing? You've followed all the rules, and now all of a sudden you're like going to rationalize, like, oh, it's Red Hat, it's good, it's like open source, this and that and the other thing. It was like a Linux software or something, and I think it's been so long, but so I blew it out, and that's why I shared with you, like, you can get to, that's why, you know, um, be a goldfish, like Ted Lasso would tell you, like, forget about it. And I did. I forgot about that trade. I said, you know what? That's bad luck, And a PM used to tell me, very successful PM would say that, luck works itself out in the market. Given enough time, you'll get good luck and bad luck, and it will work itself out. Sometimes we all just remember the bad luck. Other people remember the good luck and think it's their skill. Look, we get good luck and bad luck all the time, and it does tend to work itself out if you follow your rules, not my rules, not Bill's rules, your rules. So let's go back to this. Sorry for that tangent. Wow, am I really sorry? I don't know. So there was that time frame. Boy, I remember. Yeah, I remember that like it was yesterday, because it was right around. Where was it? It was right around here, I think. That weekend. Yeah, 324. That Sunday when I was talking to him, I told him, I think it was like 19. I said, Bill, I think this might have been another week out. I could be wrong, but it was within about a week of this. I said, Bill, I've been studying the Nikkei, because that was like a bubble. It was what, 89 or 90, as well as 1929. And I said, this is so reminiscent of those. I think it's because we were working on the Nesme list and like what stocks to put on and take off and everything. And granted, we were back up near highs, but we were underneath the old high. And we had all these climax tops and everything. And I said, I think it's really, reminds me of that time frame. And he's like, Mike, now you be quiet. You don't let anyone hear that. I still remember. It's so funny. I, you know, um, don't let anybody hear that. I was a 20-something-year-old punk, like, who's going to care that I think it's like 1929? Like, but he, in his mind, he thought, that I was going to spook. He's like, you might spook the market. Like, I'm going to spook the market. And just, every time I think of that, it just cracks. It cracks me up. But anyways, that was a unique time frame, and it was exactly like 1929. And we will do a whole thing on that, probably a few episodes. But anyways, so that's that time frame. Let's look at some other ones. Let's look at 1987. Let's go out to 88. So once this one, and what people don't realize is 1987 was actually a really good year for a large part of it. Like, so January of 87, this monster run, and your lows above your 21 day that whole way. Then when it changes on this day, that's when the character starts changing, right? Then you get the sideways action, start trending above it for a while, but then, that kind of tempers things, above it for a while here, it tempers things. Above it for a little bit, and then all hell breaks loose. And look at this. Your high is underneath that 21 day this whole time until what? Till over here. So let's go down to the 15th of December. Look at a 21 day. Freaking beautiful. It's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. Let's go out. I hate going back here because we've got some bad data, but it's worth it. Let's go to the 74, 75 time frame or 73, 74. People don't realize how bad this was because you always hear 87, you hear 1929, you hear a few other time frames, of course, 2000 or 2007 to 09, but 73, 74 was so bad. I spent 6 months just studying that time frame. It's fascinating, but let's go through that. So that really starts in January of 73 and ends in September of 74. So January 73. So you break through it. And I know we only have closing values here, but you can tell you lived underneath your 21 day that whole way. You're above it for a little bit and back below it. Above it for a little bit, back below it. And you can see if you just use your 21 day, it would have still allowed you to play when there was time to play, but stay out of all this. Okay, that's what we were just looking at. So now you stay out of this with that simple rule. You get chopped up a little bit in here. Probably made or lost or just flat there. But look at this. This whole way down, with the exception of a couple days here and 1 day there, you're underneath your 21 day. Find me something better. Really find something better. Use it then. If you got it, use it. If you're screaming on your chart that you have something better, I'm happy for you. I'm sharing stuff with you. Share if you've got something to do with podcast, share it with people, put it out on Twitter, share it with your friends. Don't keep it as a secret. Okay, so let's go to a couple stocks, and then you know what I think we'll do is we will keep this one. I'm gonna stop share. We're going to keep this episode just on the 21 day as it is around the market, and I'll do another one around how to use it around individual stocks because it is slightly different. And also, I'm sick of hearing myself talk because I did this for 2 hours earlier and forgot to share a screen for like 10 minutes of the market surge, and I'm just kicking myself. But anyways, so this is part one. Let's call it part one of the 21 day. But before I do part two, I'll do something on the follow through day because we've got that potential. You know what? Screw it. As my good buddy Chris Guess would say, we can do whatever we want. When he always says that about things, and I just love that attitude. Such a great guy. So let's just look at the market. I'm just going to do a quick little overview on the follow through day because it's important right now if you guys are watching this, and then we'll do a full deep dive into the follow through day and another one, and then we'll do a 21 day. But I have this one that I want to do on fear that has nothing to do directly with trading, but I'm gonna do that one as well because I think it might help some people, or at least help my grandkids. So here's where we're at right now. I'm recording this on I'm recording it on March 1st of 2025, but last trading day was February 28th. So we have what is called day one of a rally attempt. So when you get into trouble in the market, you have to look for a follow through day. So on a full thing, we'll get into that, or what a follow through day, when to look for it. But we're looking for a follow through day, and this is what we call day one of a rally attempt. Day one, you do nothing. But what you're looking for is on day 4 or afterwards, that's when you can have a follow through day. So today is day 1, or Friday was day 1, Monday is day 2, Tuesday is day 3, Wednesday is day 4. So on Wednesday, the 5th or after, we can get our follow through day. And the concept Bill came up with, really looking at market bottoms and saying, let's just go out to, over here, November 23, because you guys are probably familiar with this one. Let's just walk through this one. I haven't. So you're going through, let's just go over here. It's August 18th. You're looking for a follow through day. This is what we call a pink rally day, meaning you hit a low, but you close within the upper half of the closing range. So closing range of 50% or higher. Let's just blow this up a little bit. So you can see this is, if not, you just have to calculate it on your own. So 50% or higher. So this becomes day 1. So then we're going to go, that's day 1, 2, 3, 4. So in day 4, you had a potential for a follow through day. So this is up enough. And these days we like 1 to 1.25%. Right now we're looking for 1%. I'll do a whole thing on this. But this was a potential follow through day in spirit, but your volume, you want it higher than the prior day for it to be a follow through day. And the volume is less than your prior day. So it's not a follow through day, even though I would call it a follow through day in spirit because it was up more than enough. And there would be a certain look and feel to it. But here's your follow through day in spirit. Let's go out another day. Let's just go out a little bit and see. Did we get one on the 29th? So here's your real follow through day. You're up more than what you need to be. Most importantly, you've never undercut the low of your rally, which happens to be this pink rally day. And then you get this follow-on, or this follow-on move, which we call a follow-through day. Bill came up with this before I was born, probably. Don't know the exact date. But you're up a bunch, and volume is higher than the prior day. And one of the things that Chuck, Justin, and I found was that the low of that follow-through day becomes important. Once you close below that, most of the time these will fail. So let's just go out a little bit. Okay, so go out another week. So at this point, let's see, looks like our low on our follow through day was 13677. No, not quite. Let's go out another week. So somewhere in here, we close below there. But you would already know, because of the whole 21 day, that was starting to fail on this day. So let's say you're getting exposure. I would be getting exposure here, probably backing away with that downside reversal there, getting some more exposure here, probably doing something with this upside reversal. But we're talking about the follow through day. Mike, stop with your other stuff. So follow through day here, our close below it over here for sure, but really trading below it. Highs underneath the 21 day. That one has failed. So people get frustrated because they're like, "Oh, I thought a follow through day meant it's supposed to work." No, it's a place to look at, to have an expectation. Your expectation is that this is going to go like this, not do what it did. So let's go forward a little bit. Let's go out a few weeks. Oops. Let's go in here. So we had let's go to here. November 25th. So here we're coming down. Now we're looking for another rally day. We've got a rally day here. We're up on the day. Now you're lower, so you don't have a rally day. Your rally has failed because you've undercut it. You're looking for another rally day. Okay, here's a rally day. We close up on the day. That low becomes important. That's day 2. That's day 3 of your rally attempt. Day 4, but it's not up enough. You can see up 0.67. Day 5, you're coming back down. Well, technically, that could have been a follow-through day, a funny looking one. Volume wasn't higher than average, but your percent was. Let's go for it. Okay, here's your follow-through day. Volume's higher than prior day, up 1.6%. You also coincide with being above your 21 day. So again, now we know that this is an important line. The whole rally completely dies if you undercut that, but this low, so 13099, is an important level to stay above on a closing level. Let's go forward a week. Go forward another week. Okay, so we've undercut it over here, so that one failed. But again, if you're using your 21 day, you get an early warning sign right there. So really not too much harm or done there because you're in there, probably back out of it over here. Let's go forward another week. Okay, so on this day, on 23, day 1 of a rally attempt, day 2 of a rally attempt. Now you've undercut that, so you're starting over again, but it's not a pink rally day because we closed at the bottom half. Not a pink rally day. That's your day 1. So in this case, this is your day 1. With this is your low of that rally attempt. So that becomes your important low to stay above, not the low of your day 1. So this is your day 2. Day 3, day 4, follow through day. Okay, volume is higher than the prior day, up 1.64% on your day 4. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4. You're not counting this. This is really a day 0. That's your low. So again, this would be done if you undercut that, but also if you close below the low of this follow through day, that's problematic. Let's go out a week. Now your low is above it for 2 days, back above your 50 day. Your low is above your 21 day for 3 days. So you can see how these build on themselves. And so now let's go out a week. Now it's for real. It's for real. It's for real. I remember hearing a lot of people that were very negative, and they know who they are. Maybe they've forgotten to themselves. Very negative during this time frame. Because it's easy to get negative when you get these follow-through days that fail. Follow-through day that fails, follow-through day that fails, and then you start not believing in the system. And then that's why I like coinciding, using the 21 day with it to tell me how much gas to put on. Let's go out a month. It's still trending above the 21 day. Let's go out another month. And then we start running into trouble there. So that was a little bit of background on the follow-through day, which we'll do a whole thing on. But I know that people wanted that, and a lot of people voted for that. So I at least wanted to get that out there. So again, what are we looking for now with our current market? We bounce up the 200 day, and I do have some exposure to Qs and SPY and things like that. I just have to say, for compliance reasons, I'd rather be safe than sorry. So with this, we want to stay above this. If we stay above it, then we're going to count. We're going to count. Friday was day 1, Monday's day 2, Tuesday's day 3, Wednesday's day 4. Wednesday is your action day where it can happen. It can happen on your 20th day. It doesn't happen on your 4th day. Lots of them happen with your 4th to 10th day is when a lot of the follow throughs happen. You want an increase of 1% or more. If you look at volume, you want it higher than the prior day. It doesn't have to be higher than average. Anyone who tells you that has not studied follow through days. They don't know what they're talking about. I wouldn't listen to a word they said. I'm just telling you the truth. The percent, you only need a percent right now. The higher, the better. Then if we get the follow through day, it doesn't mean you just slam on the gas. It means you start increasing your exposure, especially if you're above your 21 day. Then you can, and you're staying above your 21 day, you can increase exposure more. And that's kind of the guide. But then the low of the day that you have your follow through day, you don't want to close back below that. Sometimes you could trade below it, but not necessarily close below it. So I know there was a bunch of stuff that I didn't get to. Frankly, my voice is a little tired. The we'll cover more of the 21 day. We'll cover more of the follow through day. We'll cover the fear thing at future ones. What I would say is, I like to end all these on musical note. Wearing my Jimmy shirt. Huge Jimmy fan. Have been since seventh or eighth grade, I guess. And the first song I ever heard was from Up There, that little record. That's the exact record actually I had as a teenager. It's Jimi Hendrix live at Monterey Pop Festival, and was 1967 June whatever 18 something like that. Could be off by a couple of days. I should look it up. But anyways, I think the most important concert ever, really. This is at Woodstock, Jimmy at Woodstock. Can you even see that? But the Monterey Pop Festival, that was before he was a thing. Like the folks at the Rolling Stones and Clapton and folks knew how, and Pete Townsend knew how special he was, but the rest of the world didn't. And so he goes out at Monterey Pop Festival and he leaves it all out on the field, man. He had it out of the park. It was just, I mean, I listened to that every day for, years and years and years growing up, and it never got old. And people always think about it, that's when he smashes his guitar and lights it on fire, and that's all cool and everything. But really it was, his version of Bob Dylan's tune. Also, he did a "Rock Me Baby" tune. Of course, he did the "Hey Joe," which never really that big of a fan of. But the "Killing Floor," which I think was a Howlin' Wolf tune that he starts off with, and if that doesn't get your blood boiling and goosebumps going in the first 15 seconds of the song, man, go you call 911. Go to the hospital because there's something wrong with you, man. Like, that's as good as it gets, and that's the first song that I ever heard was "Killing Floor" live at Monterey, and I've been hooked ever since. Like, no one is better. Well, I'll share this. I'll get all my other ones packed up, but this is my little Jimmy. I know Jimmy didn't play tellies, but I got this, found this on eBay by this guy, and then had this built. My favorite thing. You can see that Be Kind had all this custom done, but and I suck at guitar. I just play because it brings me peace and happiness in a healthy way. But Jimmy was, something very special. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, and you older folks like me, probably like, why are you talking about Jimmy? Like, people don't know about it. But I saw some comments that were like, from people like, oh, thanks for telling me about Tom Petty. I'd never heard of him. Thinking, you have never heard of Tom Petty. So if you've never heard of Tom Petty, you probably never heard of Jimmy. So again, I would start off with get Monterey Pop Festival, listen to that one, on loop. Of course, his studio albums are great. The Electric Ladyland is so special. Double album, and he just left us way too soon. But anyways, that's my little musical thing for you guys. And again, as the guitar says, man, be kind. Do something kind for a stranger out there. It'll really surprise them, change their day, and then maybe they'll go and do something nice to for someone else, and it'll just keep on paying it forward that way. So hope you guys got something good out of this, and please feel free to put comments in. Just don't put anything negative. If you watch one of these, or the negative comments are typically people who don't watch it, just say it's too long. Well, what? Screw you, man. If you're not going to watch it and say it's too long, if you watch it and say it's too long, well, yeah, you're right. But it is what it is. But don't not watch it and tell me it's too long. But if you have something positive to say, I read all of them. It keeps me going. I appreciate that. but don't put anything negative. But feel free to share this with folks because I'm putting this out there. It's free. I mean, each one of these, um, you know, could be charged a ton of money for. Uh, back when I used to teach seminars with Bill, it was $3,000 a day. When we did the weekend workshops where it was a 2-day thing, and a bunch of us would do that, it would be like 8 to 10 grand for the weekend. I mean, this stuff is, can be pricey. And I'm putting it out there for free to help folks. So, share it. I like to get this out, and I want to try to figure out how to put it on Spotify and stuff, but I just not too bright. So if anyone wants to just help me, that's yeah, because I can't really ask people at work. They're already, everyone at work. We're all doing 30 jobs at a time. So that's why I do this on the weekends, because don't have time during the week, and I don't want to bother anyone. They would help me if I asked them, but I don't want to bother them. All great people. So anyways, peace out. Have a good weekend. If I get around to it, I'm going to do that fear one, because I think it could help some people and probably help me actually telling that story. So see you guys. It is, to let you know, it's about the one time and only time I told Bill no. So I'll leave you with that tease. See you guys, and hopefully this one actually worked. I'm not doing it a third time.